listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. This is episode 142, the first of a two-part episode where we talk about Steve's adventure into the Enhanced Concealed Carry class at Independence Indoor Shooting. We go over the basic outline of the class, Steve's thoughts on it, and what you can expect when you walk in. We will cut this one off halfway and make it a two-parter. We'll pick it back up next week, so stay tuned for part 2 then. But for now, we hope you enjoy listening to episode 142 of Range Minded, the Independence Indoor Shooting Enhanced Concealed Carry class, part 1. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long and I am joined as always by...
Hey, it's Steve, just playing with my Glock.
Yes, you are. Like, we all can hear it. And we are also joined by...
Nick Hoffer.
Yes, we missed you last week.
Yeah, I needed a break from you guys.
I understand.
No, I had some stuff come up last minute and I couldn't get out of it. So sorry that you guys missed me.
That's the life of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it was pretty not world changing, but it had to be done. So.
Fair enough. Well, we're glad to have you back now, and we are going to talk about Steve, mainly.
Oh, you're going to talk about me?
We're going to talk about you the whole time, because we're
going to dedicate this show to Steve.
Oh, that's just swell.
Yeah, because you took a class this past weekend.
I did.
What class was that?
Well, did we even talk about it last week? I guess I put it on the... Yeah, we did talk about it last week.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I decided I'd take the Enhanced Concealed Weapon Permit for Idaho. And most people are like... In fact, we had one of our listeners who's like, you kept telling me to take the class and you've never taken it?
I saw that. That was pretty funny.
So, yes and no. Like, I have participated in that class many times. Even in the student capacity, I just never took care of the paperwork. So I decided I'm going to take it again. So it was informative and entertaining.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I imagine it was all of that and more. And so we're going to go through everything in excruciating detail and tell people what they can expect when they do take an Enhanced Concealed Carry class, at least from Independence Indoor Shooting. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So let's just start right at the beginning. Sure. Tell us about the basics of the class. What made you want to maybe take the class to start, and how it all went.
So the reason why I took the class wasn't just to get, the paperwork for my permit. I mean, that's obviously the real purpose of the class. But what I really wanted to do is I like to watch other instructors teach.
Sure.
And I always go into any class, even the basic class, with the idea that I'm going to learn something new. Because I always do, even on stupid classes. Like, I always learn something different, or it clicks in a different way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I was excited when we could sneak into that class.
Yeah, I will say that is a benefit of being able to, or working at a gun store, is being able to sneak into classes most of the time, which is kind of nice.
Most of the time. And it was a very full class.
Was it?
Yeah, it was packed, which is cool because we want to see that. And there were all different walks of life, all levels of capabilities of students in that class.
Yeah.
Which is good to see.
Oh, for sure. The diversity in a class is always, at least to me, a refreshing thing, because you always think you're going to be kind of surrounded by people like you or a certain kind of person or whatever. And it's always nice to see a bunch of different people.
I'm definitely a certain kind of person.
I was going to say, I definitely do not expect to be surrounded by people like Steve when I take a class.
Oh, really?
That's the last thing you want.
Oh, see, I expect just to be surrounded by a dozen Steves all the time.
Well,
so how many people do you think were in the class?
28, I think is what it was.
Really?
26.
How many instructors?
So Sarah taught the class.
Awesome.
Sarah's amazing. Like, I've seen her progress in her teaching abilities from the start. So seeing her very comfortable in the class and students, you could tell, were learning and having a good time. Anyway, so she was just the instructor in the class up until the legal portion. We talked about that last week about having to take a legal portion of the class.
Yeah,
and that was taught by an attorney, and I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he's pretty cool too.
Yeah, and we talked about that, I think, last week, where, part of it does have to be taught by a legal expert or somebody who's certified to be able to teach that part. So I think when I took the enhanced carry class, it was taught by Jim Love.
Jim.
Of the formerly of the Idaho State Police, very well decorated and experienced Idaho State policeman, and he was actually qualified to teach the legal part. So we were able to have the same instructor the whole time, which was kind of interesting.
And I haven't talked to him in so long. Jim's a good guy.
He's a great guy. And he was a great person to learn from, and really good demeanor. Definitely one of my favorite instructors for sure. Next to Bill for sure. Those are my top two, and Leroy too, and Sarah. There's just too many good ones, I guess.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky to have the people that we have, and it's not like we were lucky right off the bat. We've definitely gone through instructors, and we've had some that we struggled with. Some that needed to dial in their abilities a little bit more before they got in front of a lot of people. But no, we have a lucky squad, I think, to teach.
So I'm curious then, how did you have anybody or notice anybody who was surprised that a woman was teaching the enhanced concealed carry class?
I don't think so. I mean, there were way more guys than gals in the class.
Sure.
And I don't know, maybe they thought it was pleasant to have a girl teacher instead of a guy teacher. But she did awesome as far as like understanding the content and answering the questions, or even asking good questions, just to see where everybody's at. It was a good class. It was a good group of people, and there really wasn't anybody that was like over macho. We had a lady that the class she took before was the first shots.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it was quite a leap for her.
Yeah, how'd she do?
I didn't see how she shot. I was in the second group. She was in the first group.
Okay.
But I'm sure she did fine.
So with that said, would you be able to make an estimate of how many people you think were new shooters taking the class and it being their first?
That was the very first question that Sarah asked. And I think out of that 26 or 28, there might have been 26. I think we may have missed a couple people. I think there was 3 new shooters. So,
seriously? That's it?
Yeah.
That's low, wow. I would say.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe this sounds really mean, but like the average age of the students was a little higher than I thought too.
So they were like your age?
Yeah. Oh, super old.
Closer to your age than mine?
Yeah, I would say there was maybe 2 of them under 40.
Wow. So it was a lot of, significantly older than what you would expect, I guess.
Yeah.
So did they ask what their enticement to take the class was? Because when you give the demographic like that, not new shooters and not young per se.
Yeah, I wish she would have followed up with that question, because that would be interesting information to know, at least for us, because we like that kind of information, right? We like the statistics and no. In fact, I was talking to a customer after the class that comes in a lot, and he spends a lot of time in other stores as well. And he was told by a couple other gun stores that the vast majority of gun purchases they're seeing are, he called them gray-hairs. So, people that are a little bit more seasoned. And the stuff that we found last year was way more millennials were buying firearms. But anecdotally, it's the older groups of people that are buying firearms.
Interesting.
I think in that aspect, I think last year it was they needed firearm for self-protection and or like just buying a gun because it was something that you could still do, right? Because there was nothing else that you could go do. So millennials might jump in there, and then first-time gun owners, because we were getting rid of the police and having rioting. But I would say that this month, a majority of the gun purchases are driven on a whole different level, which would be the idea that you won't be able to purchase them the same way.
In the
Sure,
future.
yeah.
And that could very well be, yeah.
And so the so-called gray hairs, as that guy called them, understands what that means when you start looking at, what is it, like 15 bills submitted.
Introduced. Yeah.
So like when the people who are paying attention to that are not the younger generation, it's the people that have been in this fight for a while and they're watching it.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Yeah, I think that fits pretty well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I noticed that too. So it was as the trend of the new buyers goes through the store, I then noticed the different trends in who's buying holsters for the guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
And lately, I would say probably the last few months, actually, it has been an older demographic of people, and even people bringing guns that they've had for a long time and never carried. Like, I think this week I'm working on one guy's set of guns. It's like 12 holsters that I'm making for him.
That's
cool.
A lot, yeah.
So he brought in a gun case that had $30,000 worth of pistols in it.
Jeez.
Whoa.
I think every OZ9 variant that Zev makes, he had one.
What?
Yeah.
Huh.
He had three of the Glocks, the compact, the full size, and then the long slide, and then he was just picking up the 320.
Wow.
And he wanted a holster for each of them.
Yep. Actually, he already had holsters for some of them, but he wanted to get new ones for all of them.
Man.
Well, that's cool though.
Yeah, his holster bill is like almost $2,000.
That's even better. Cool.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money in holsters, man.
Does he need some training?
Maybe.
Yeah, seriously. So yeah, I mean, that actually doesn't surprise me because, you know, the political climate and things are changing and everything, and that, you know, people are thinking that, you know, and it's kind of writing on the wall that, you know, we might not be able to purchase firearms like we have been in the last, you know, decade or couple of years or however you want to say it. And, you know, you want to get that training and get that licensing, you know, before you know, you run into some other issues, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, Steve, you said you were part of the second group. So walk us through part of the class or the whole kind of itinerary of the class. You know, for people who don't know, you know, that there is a classroom and a shooting portion. I think that's definitely good to know.
Yeah. So we talked about it. I think we just touched on it last week. So when there's a lot of students, you know, when we have near 30 students, there's not enough room on the range to have all those people come up at once. So what we do at Independence is we teach the entire group the class portion, I guess. So the curriculum, as far as the fundamentals and basically everything that you see. We use the USCCA's curriculum,
right?
And so we go through their little coffee table book, which if you don't have, you need to pick that up, and that takes quite a while. I mean, there's a lot of information to get through there.
Yeah, it's a pretty hefty book, and there's a lot of what's the word? I guess you'd call them deep concepts in there that you really want to think about, or
there's a lot of theory in there, which is good. Like some of the whys get answered, like why do we do this or why should we do that type of thing. Not the legal side of it, but there's a lot of information and good stuff to think about. Even, you know, how not to walk down the alley or what to look for, looking at people's hands, that kind of stuff. You know,
right.
There's stuff that you wouldn't maybe even think about being in a concealed carry class.
Well, it's a lot of it's about situational awareness and getting away from a situation or preventing yourself from getting into a situation. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
they definitely cover a lot of that, and I think rightly so in that book. So
yeah, it's very comprehensive, and I really like their curriculum.
Yeah. So yeah, just kind of walk us through the whole class a little bit in terms of, you know, what you can expect.
Yeah. So after we go through that curriculum, then there's either a break for lunch, or in our case, it was kind of an afternoon bite to eat. And then we divided the class in half.
Okay.
So half of the group goes into the range. So Group A and Group B. Group A will go to the range while Group B sits and listens to the legal side, the legal portion of the class.
Right.
Which was awesome. Like that's where I got way more information than through the other stuff, because I kind of know the other stuff already. And then that's probably 2 hours of lecture, maybe even a little bit more. And it's I wish I could remember his name. I really feel bad. He's super entertaining and very comprehensive. And in fact, we're going to try and get him on the show because he has a lot of information to share.
Right. As long as you can remember his name.
Yeah. Oh, I'll get it. And then, so once Group A is done on the range and B is done in the classroom, obviously we switch, and then B goes to the range and A is in the classroom. So there's not a lot of lag time. I mean, there's a few minutes usually from going into the range and waiting for the legal portion to finish up, because we pump them through the shooting portion fairly quickly.
Right.
Just to make sure that, because we don't want to be, the range side doesn't want to be the slow side. Scott Sheriff, who usually runs the shooting side, he likes to make sure people are done on time. He doesn't want to be the guy that's slowing down the class. Right.
Well, and with 28 people, then you've got to have something that some people might not think about too, is we've talked about it before, is that so that's 14 and 14, but even if you have 14 people, not all 14 people are necessarily going to be shooting on the range at the same time. You're going to break that up into
relays inside
thank
that
you.
group.
Yeah, I forgot the word there. And so that's going to take even more time because people have to switch or whatever, but at least it does give you some downtime to reload and kind of see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good. I've helped in the shooting portion. I've conducted the shooting portion, and that is a lot of fun because you get to really see where people are paying attention in the class. If we're talking about, grip and stance and all that stuff, and it also gives you a chance to really correct what bad habits they may have had before, or may have been taught by a friend before they took the class. The shooting portion is a ton of fun for me.
Oh yeah, that's where the excitement is. I think a lot of people want to.
Yeah.
They maybe think that it is just the shooting portion the whole time, and there's actually more to it than that. So,
no, there's a lot.
What kind of exercises and training and drills did you run in the shooting portion?
So we didn't get too fancy when Scott conducts his shooting portion. He keeps stuff pretty basic. We go through like a 10 round dry fire. So they can get a feel for the trigger and see what they're doing. Then it's usually, I guess he did it too. When I do it, it's usually a 1 to 3 shot string just in the very beginning,
right?
So they can get used to the recoil, and then just build up the round count slowly. So they build their confidence and they understand the recoil management portion of it. And we're always correcting them, usually yelling people to get their finger off the trigger,
right?
But it's a lot of fun. Like it's not intimidating. And we've talked about it before. In the state of Idaho, it's 98 rounds, and it's not a proficiency test, which maybe that needs to be changed a little bit.
Sure.
It's just you have to shoot 98 rounds.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, where other, places may just take you to the desert and shoot 99 rounds into the ground, and that qualifies,
Which is ridiculous.
It is a little crazy, but in Illinois, actually, that's a big difference between here and there. Is that to get your concealed carry permit in Illinois, you actually have to take the round count is a proficiency exam, and you have to shoot. I think it's 30 rounds. It's 10 rounds at 5 yards, 7 yards, and 10 yards, and I think you have to get 21 out of 30. I want to say. That sounds right. Something like that. It's you have to get at least it's like a D or a C passing grade.
So I had a customer in the shop the other day, and he was showing me his California concealed weapons permit.
Oh man.
And you have to qualify with the gun that you're carrying, and it's written on your card.
Right.
Really?
And I can't remember, but I think you can either only have 1 or 3 different guns. before you have to go back and they put it on there. Yeah, so he showed me the card, and I can't remember if it had multiple guns written on it, but it had the actual firearm he was allowed to carry written on it.
And the caliber, right? The ammunition caliber.
and the caliber. So it's like it's like a Glock 19, and I think it has it's attached to the serial number. It's like that gun.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
And so if I want to go to carrying a Glock 43, I have to go in and have my card changed, and then I can't carry the other gun anymore.
Oh, that's frustrating.
That's insane.
So I think it's less of a qualification and it's more of a restriction.
Or sounds like a registration to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild because obviously we've talked about it before too, where if you have different situations, maybe you go from a more casual setting to a more formal setting, or from, warm climate to a cold climate. I mean, you could do that in California in 3 hours, depending on where you're at. And that can change the size or the caliber of the gun you want to carry.
Now that I think about the conversation that me and him were having, I want to say that you could have 3 guns and they were listed on your card, because we had spoke about, me and him were talking about Nevada, because I knew you had to do that in Nevada. But in Nevada, you can qualify with as many guns as you want. You just have to go in and shoot them and meet the qualification, and then you could have 20 guns on your qualification card. But I think California, it was only 3.
Yeah,
and then if you wanted to change it out, you had to take one off and add the new one.
That's insane, man.
And probably for a small fee too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Several $100s. Yeah. That was the big thing in Illinois.
And the wait to go to the DMV or wherever they make you do that's probably 6 hours.
Yeah, that was the thing in Illinois where I had to pay $150 for the class. And then on top of that, I had to, I think it was $100 or $200 or something like that to do the registration for the concealed carry. And then they gave you the option of whether you wanted to get fingerprinted or not. And it would be faster. You get your concealed carry license faster if you got fingerprinted.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
And that would have cost an extra $100, I think, to get done.
Oh, the bureaucracy.
Yeah. So I respectfully denied getting fingerprinted and waited my time, and it took 6 weeks, I think, or something. It was kind of a long time.
I heard that's what the wait is here in Idaho to get your fingerprints done is 6 weeks.
Really?
Well, they were saying in Ada County that it's quite a process right now because of the backlog. Which
interesting.
I want to say that there's a state law that says you have to have it in. I'll have to do some digging. I thought there was a time period that the state set aside saying it has to be done in this amount of time, but I could be wrong.
No, I'm sure there is. There's because it's we're a shall issue state.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a reasonable expectation of time frame there. I remember I remember I got mine, and when I showed my training and showed my address, they actually fingerprinted me right there. Which okay, if you're gonna do it, then you might as well do it right there, and there's not any extra fee for my basic concealed carry permit. And then they gave me a temporary, and then within I think 2 weeks, I think I had mine in the mail, and my permanent one was in the mail. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be a question for Brian Norton, who is the attorney from the class.
Oh, you got it.
So one thing that I had a discussion about this last week too, when it came to the classes, was because of our concealed carry laws here, a big benefit is that if the wait is 6 weeks to get your fingerprints done, or even to make your appointment to go into the DMV because of COVID. I'm sure that's a big problem, but you can still carry after you take the class. I mean, you can carry without the class. So once you've taken the class, while you're waiting to get your permit, you can still be carrying your gun.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
Sure.
So it's not like it was when I got my permit, and it was you couldn't carry until you got the permit.
Oh, that was because that was before constitutional carry. Then I imagine.
Yeah. So I had to wait a couple of weeks before I could start carrying my gun.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Definitely one good thing about constitutional carry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. And I mean, but the other thing too is even if you have like a standard concealed carry permit, you should be able to carry no problem until you get your enhanced, and then you're good to go. So,
yeah.
So what was the biggest thing you learned in the class? Or maybe the thing that maybe you didn't know that surprised you the most?
Well, I guess I wasn't really surprised, but the part that I enjoyed the most was the legal side of it all.
Sure.
Because he doesn't read each individual code, but he identifies each code, and then he kind of paraphrases what they mean, and then he gives some good references or examples, I guess,
sure, yeah.
of each one, and it was kind of cool. And it gave me some ideas for other classes, like not to take, but maybe to create, that I think would be a lot of fun too. So,
yeah, well, I imagine a lot of people don't think about the legal side of things. They think about the personal protection side, which is, important, but the legal side obviously is going to be, what happens during and after your situation,
Well, and like he said, ignorance is no excuse for the law. He says it is your responsibility to know the law.
Right.
And you need to look them up. You need to understand what they say. And he said he actually does an 8-hour constitutional, like a 2A class, for an 8-hour legal class, which I'm pretty interested in taking that too, actually.
Yeah, that'd be a great one to take.
I would take that one.
Yeah, for sure. So,
thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.